And so next we're going to have a presentation. If you want to know how city service and quantum can be applied to a city service, we have the Fantastic Five coming up, and they won the quantum hackathon that Kai Ventures, David back there, put on a few weeks ago, and they used the snowplow optimization problem to as their challenge. So just going to give us a couple of minutes to set up here, and then we'll begin. Okay, here you go. Here's the Fantastic Five, everyone.
Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. We are the Fantastic Five. My name's Kevin. And back on October 6th, our team was judged best overall at the GenQ Quantum Computing Hackathon. And we'd like to give our presentation to you here because we think it'll be a tremendous benefit to the city of Calgary. Let's begin with a story. Imagine John. He's had a really hard day, and all he wants to do is go home. But oh no, there's a huge dump of snow. That means that there's slow traffic, lots of accidents, and it's 75% worse because of delayed snow plows. But what's worse is there's no way he's going to be on time to pick up his child from the daycare. This makes John so angry. So what can he do? Well, he can call 311 and complain. Do you want to be the one to take his call? Me not. But during the hackathon, it turns out that John isn't all that an imaginary person. We interviewed 3 people. Alice here says that she's given up calling 311. And Tom, who's a doctor, is always worried about getting locked in because he has to get to a hospital where he's urgently needed. And Emma here knows that there is a snow clearing map, but it's not really good for driving. Turns out that these people aren't alone. According to the latest satisfaction survey data back in the spring, 98% of people think that snow clearing is important, but only 70% say that the city is doing a good job. Only one other city service has fared worse with these numbers. That's affordable housing. This is a big red flag. Now, to be fair, this is not an easy problem to solve. You have to consider such things as the width of the roads, how much traffic there is on the roads, the fact that snow plows have difficulty making U-turns. Some roads are a higher priority than other roads. Some roads are closed to construction or for other reasons. Some roads are one way. Snow plows have difficulty getting uphill sometime. And we also have to keep track that the snow is constantly falling. But what makes this even more complex is that we don't have to solve for just one snowplow. We typically have to solve for about 58. All of that means that this is a super complicated problem. Now, when the GenQ Quantum Computing Hackathon was announced, I saw this as an opportunity to help my fellow citizens. I too have been stuck in the snow. For me, this was personal. Japnet, do you think our team's up to it?
Definitely, Kevin, because we have a mix of software engineers, people who are good at quantum, as well as a business thinker who makes sure that we come up with a solution that is not too theoretical. And after 2 sleepless nights, juggling work meetings while working on the hackathon, submitting the solution after literally 500 tries because the platform kept failing, singing on the rooftop, and making 50+ Canvas slides, it was all worth it because we won the entire hackathon. We won the snow blowing challenge. A lot of bragging rights for us that weekend, and it was my first hackathon win as a software engineer, so very proud moment for me as well. And this is the solution we came up with in just 48 hours. Our vision was to disrupt the route planning mechanism currently employed to not only help the city, but also the citizen as well as the snowplow driver. And our solution is a hybrid solution called Street Guardian, which transforms the Calgary's road conditions map into a powerful quantum-powered live Google Maps application. And yes, we made a small beta during the hackathon, and I have a demo that I want to show to you guys. So we have a use case for the car driver and the snowplow driver. So imagine you want to get to work. Now you can clearly see which roads have been plowed and which haven't, so you can safely reach your workplace. But let's say there's a shortcut that you want to take and that hasn't been plowed. You can quickly report it. All of this feeds into our central system, which takes into account other factors like traffic, citizen reports, maybe congestion, to automatically reroute the snowplow. So this was our great vision, and this is what it looks on the city's end. Now the city would be able to take note of the construction areas, the congestions, be able to track each snowplow, be able to call the driver, reroute them, set priority zones, as well as, let's say an emergency vehicle is stuck in the snow, we want to reroute for that, calculate the reroute possible for that. Let's say there's certain lanes that are being reported by the citizen more often, or weather conditions that have changed and it's snowing again. So many different variables that we need to keep track of. I know it's very confusing, and classically it's very hard to solve. So Jamal, how are we gonna solve for so many variables at once?
Probably we are going to use some sort of magic. When we are talking about superposition and entanglement, it might sound like magic, but there's a fine line between quantum science and being a magician. So let's go into the details of the quantum principles. In classical situation, we have bits, which are either 0 or 1. But in the quantum situation, we have 0 and 1 at the same time. That calls superposition. Let's do a thought experiment. Let's have a cat and put it in a box with a poison. If we don't look into the box, the cat could be at the same time dead and alive. Dead means 0 and alive means 1, which is the meaning of superposition. So let's look at the entanglement, the other superpower of quantum. When we are bringing two qubits together and interconnecting them, those two create one object, which at the end of the day, they have 4 possible outcomes. If you want to do another thought experiment, we could think of the entanglement as 2 qubits are interconnected together and playing seesaw, which means affecting one of them could affect the other one immediately. So those are the superpower of the quantum. And the way that we are going to use them is that if we compare classical computer and the quantum computer, in the classical situation, we have to try each of the possible answers one by one. But in the quantum situation, we could use superposition and entanglement to try all of the possible situations and come up with the best one. If you want to think mathematically, what happens is that in the classical situation, it is so hard to not fall into the trap of local minimum, which like what happens for the Red Bull. And for the quantum path, which we are using tunneling, there is very possible that we find the global minima by finding a minimum possible energy in the energy landscape. But how we are going to use all of these to solve the real world problem? Because quantum is not enough. We have to use classical computer as well. We could perceive the quantum processing unit something like GPU that has to have CPU alongside. So the classical computer could optimize the parameters, and quantum processing unit can handle the hard problem, which sometimes is doing the optimization part. During the hackathon, we used different optimizers and different ansatz to find the best runtime possible. So we could deal with the realistic configuration of the city. We used IBM quantum computer, and it turns out, based on our simulation, if we are able to simulate for 12 nodes, we could surpass the classical solutions and show the supremacy. But here's the thing, our quantum machines are noisy. Thanks to Adam, Dan, I have the easy way to explain why does that the case, because it's not about just having more qubits. It's about being able to mitigate those errors. So as you can see, computing volume would be increased if you have more qubits and less error rate. So during the hackathon, we came up with this idea to use cat qubits because we could mitigate the error significantly by finding the sweet spot of using the number of photons in our simulation. So what does that mean is, even though we have like error prone machines right now, we could do something meaningful with them. But that's not the only case, because as we can see, the graph shows that there are a lot of new players coming to the game, and the number of qubits are raising. And there is the possibility of using these quantum computers, even though they are noisy, in near future. And the way that we are proposing is using D-Wave plus NVIDIA. It turns out that using hyper-performing computers plus quantum processing units from D-Wave, it's the way to go, because the way that they benchmarked, it turns out if you want to communicate between hyper-performance computing and what's going on, and the QPU, it takes less than 10 seconds to transfer the data between those two processing units, the classical and the quantum. And based on the latest research papers, like comparing the classical solutions and the quantum solutions and the hybrid solution, it turns out the hybrid is the best answer. It can find the solutions much faster compared to the classical approach sometimes, and sometimes it's comparable. This is with D-Wave machine, with the previous topology. But with the next generation of topology, as Adam mentioned, we have the ability to surpass those solutions that we found. Here I'm going to explain what's going on. So we have the orange one. That is the new topology of the D-Wave hardware. And it turns out, in terms of average runtime, that is much faster than the previous topology. And just look at this graph here. If you could do something with the previous topology and surpass or be comparable to the classical situation, what would we can do with the new topology of D-Wave? And that's going to be released very soon, because D-Wave shown this topology in 2021. So that's why we could use quantum hybrid solution, because we can do fast optimization in less time and less fuel consumption, which is aligned with the city's goals. So classical computers brought us up until here, and we are so grateful because of that. But here's the thing. There is a plateau of the growth of the classical machines. And we have the opportunity right now, today, to embark on the journey of using hybrid classical and quantum solution, so we are ready for the future of quantum era.
The importance to invest right now is because we know quantum is going to be the future. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the day after, but it's going to be here. And just to understand how we can use an approach to solve with classical and quantum, let's slice the elephant. I do want to make a declaration that no animals were harmed during the making of this presentation, because I think we have seen a cat, a rat, and an elephant by now. But what we are proposing is a divide and conquer approach. We do not need to solve for the entire city of Calgary right now. We can solve for subsections of that map. And we were able to solve for a very small 4-node graph in just 48 hours, which is a small subsection of the city of Calgary. And what we have seen in recent research is this divide and conquer approach actually being used. So for an optimization problem, we will decompose it into smaller problems, solve those smaller problems separately, and then combine the solution. The really cool part about quantum is that if we decompose the graph in a very smart way, we can actually change the initial Hamiltonian in such a way that quantum is able to even perform better on these smaller problems. Classically, this cannot be done because an NP-hard problem will remain an NP-hard problem even on a smaller graph. So this is why we're very excited about this possibility of using a divide and conquer approach and be able to solve for the entire city in the next few years. And to see how we're going to get there, we have a roadmap for all of you. If we start research right now, we can collaborate with key stakeholders of the city to get some insights and work with them so that we can come with a quantum-ready data model in the next 3 months, which is going to be our first prototype, while as well developing the application for the planning as well as the Snowplow driver app. Now, this would mean that by next winter, we would be ready for a small pilot test in downtown Calgary, which would be basically daily optimization for the routes, maybe not real time, but also enabling real-time tracking of the plows so that citizens can know which roads have been plowed and such technologies. We'll be able to use the feedback gathered from this initial pilot test to be able to integrate and optimize our application through agile development. And the cool part is that we don't need to wait for the next winter to try again. We can try with Calgary street sweeping because it's the same problem, or expand into different industries like garbage, deliveries, agriculture. So if we are able to invest in the solution and solve this problem, we're able to solve a lot more optimization problems as long as we can translate them to our solution. And what we've been trying to do for the past 20 minutes is try to convince you that the quantum future is here. But if we weren't successful, maybe someone from the city can convince you. So we have a quote from David. And he thinks that our world is a big quantum machine. So what will happen if we actually start rebuilding applications and use cases with the power of quantum? I would like to take this opportunity to thank the City of Calgary for taking part at the hackathon and enabling us to work on this real world use case, as well as having the city representatives be so kind and give us feedback and this opportunity to present to all of you. I would just like everybody here to take 1 second. We were 5 people from 3 different countries. We met on the day of the hackathon, and in 48 hours, we came up with a solution. With the right resources, with the right time, and putting all the efforts that we can into this, just imagine what all of us can do together. And City of Calgary, let us start your quantum journey. Thank you.
We can take questions now. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's super inspiring to see brilliant minds put to use in such a short time. You came up with a solution. You know, we've been talking all day about how long it could take to come up with a quantum solution, and yeah, you guys demonstrated that. You know, you can do it very quickly, and that was very inspiring.
You were looking for a killer app?
Do you have any questions from the audience? Thanks, Katania.
Well, congratulations. I was witness to your hackathon, championship, so well done.
Thank you.
You said 4 nodes to do that little section. Do you have an estimation of how many nodes to do a larger section of Calgary, or even all of Calgary?
So based on D-Wave's papers that is out there, they have tried to do for 35 nodes, and they are like finding the solution immediately. That is for optimizing the driver optimization problem, which is something relevant to this that we are doing, but we have to tailor that solution to our problem as well. And they are just using their like hardware. They are not using NVIDIA plus D-Wave type of thing. And those things that they are doing, like a little bit outdated with the newest algorithms that we found in the papers that also are using D-Wave solution, we could do much better than that. And I want to highlight something very interesting about this to hammer this home. Because so the problem with the classical computer is that we are using gradient descent, right? But the good thing about D-Wave approach and quantum annealing in general is that the runtime is in the order of 1 over g squared. And g is the minimum gap between ground state and the first excited state. And the way that quantum annealing works is that you're finding the initial Hamiltonian, so that's much easier. And then by evolving the system, you're finding the final Hamiltonian, which gives you the optimized value. So here's the thing. That's the idea that we want to pursue. If you find the initial Hamiltonian by decomposing these graphs into smaller chunks, such a way that we find those initial Hamiltonians that are much easier to solve and much faster, we can do much better than classical situation. And to top it off, we can do AI to reinforce that finding the best Hamiltonian, the initial Hamiltonian. So we can come up with solution much faster. So this is the idea that I came up with like yesterday when I was talking with somebody else. So this is what we want to pursue. Sure.
Sandra.
So you mentioned that you had implemented a hybrid solution between classical and quantum. When you implemented the quantum component, how long did that take? What was the time frame?
So great question, because so initially we were using IBM because that was a restriction from the hackathon. From the beginning, I just wanted to use D-Wave, but I don't know why they tried to restrict us to use IBM. So it turns out if you really want to solve for longer nodes, like a bigger chunk of the city, it takes like an hour, like doing like 6 node. That's very hard to do with the IBM right now. And the problem is that, so the reason why I'm insisting on D-Wave is that this is inherently D-Wave quantum annealing in general. It's not about D-Wave. But the company that does the quantum annealing and commercially it's available is D-Wave, right? So those quantum annealings are inherently good for solving the optimization problems, especially QUBO, quadratic unconstrained binary optimization. The reason why is because they are very natural to solve the Ising model. And the Ising model is like having those superconducting qubits in D-Wave. And it's very easy to transfer your mathematical problem into the quantum simulation and transfer those QUBO problems, that is finding the cost function, the minimum cost function, and transferring to the quantum simulation so you can find the, like in the landscape of the energy, find the minimum energy. That is what we're trying to do in classical situation, which is hard by doing gradient descent. But it's much easier when I was talking about like quantum tunneling. This is what we are doing actually. We are transferring those mathematical problems into the quantum simulation, so we find the global minimum much faster because of the quantum tunneling. But in a classical situation, you have to do one by one. That is not possible to do faster than. That is the promise that we are very excited about. Sorry for the long answer.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, all this was figured out in the 48 hours, which was the hackathon time. So that was a very little 2 sleepless nights is the result of our work. Yeah, and like we were able to solve for a very small subsection of the graph. And to answer the first question as well, we don't need to solve the entire graph in one go. We can divide and conquer it, which is a very normal classical approach as well. So what we were exploring was a hybrid solution where we actually use technologies which are their state-of-the-art classical technologies, as well as possibly machine learning. We came up with some really cool ideas of like being able to mimic quantum systems using ML as well in certain cases when we don't have that much time to run the quantum systems. So what we're trying to leverage is the current technologies available right now, as well as integrating quantum for the hard part. Yeah.
So to be clear, when I was talking about like 10 nodes, like takes an hour, that's IBM, right? D-Wave takes 3 minutes probably, or less than that, solving 35 nodes.
So with the strategy, like I know, I don't know how many intersections there are in the city, but I know there are around 1,300 managed intersections or controlled intersections. So would you like take 35 and divide it by 1,200, and then you do each one of those as a unit or a pod?
I think it would depend based on our capacity and how frequently we're communicating with the quantum computer or like using the algorithm as well, because it totally depends on how we structure the app. Because for one snowplow, they just need to see like the area around them. Like the next 35 nodes could be a lot, like the whole
Right.
path for them for that day, right?
Sure.
So yeah, we'll just have to figure out how to decompose the graph in a strategic manner, like Jamal said, and then combine the solution together if we're limited, which we are going to be limited by the number of nodes that we can solve on one quantum computer or the technology we have access to then.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have to like add parameters one by one and see where does the QPU or hybrid solution breaks down, and then step back and try to by tailoring the problem in a way that we are finding. So the reason why a quantum computer cannot find if you're defining your Hamiltonian in a way that there is a small gap, because when you're doing it, so I don't want to go into the details, like into the weed here, but there is a clever way to chunk the problem so that it's possible to do it faster. So the point that I'm trying to across here is that it has to be some sort of feedback loop here. So when you're solving for that many nodes, then you have to see what is the result and then try to reiterate that, get the feedback, and then define your Hamiltonian again, so you can do it in a way that is beneficial for classical and quantum part as well, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Sounds like you're pursuing this further. What's the next step? Like, are you incorporated? Are you applying for Chi Ventures program? What's happening?
We're figuring it out because, like I said, 5 people, we just came together. 2 of us are not here because one is in the US, one is in Switzerland. Yeah. So we're still figuring out what's next for us. We're just very excited with what we have been doing till now and excited to share it with all of you. And then let's see, David, what's next for us?
Let's
They,
put the question
pay you
to
for that question, Megan.
Let's put the question to the audience. Do you think this is something worth pursuing?
Another question. So you, in my head, you only did one area, and that's to maximize the amount of time and resources that you had in such a limited time frame. Now, I'm thinking that each area that you target going forward may have different variables. So by doing that exercise, you can refine or incorporate those different variables in each area of the city and then combine afterwards so that you are having a much more accurate approach. Would that, my understanding, be correct?
Yeah, I think it'll be a step-by-step approach. We might be able to do 1 or 2 variables to start with and then keep on growing the complexity of the problem as well. The reason we need to sort of like start soon or like start thinking about a quantum solution is also because it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's like we said in the slides, it's probably 3 to 5 years still where you're going to have like a solution that the whole city is using and it's perfect and super reliable and there's no problems with it, right? But if we look back even to like the classical approach that we had, it's always a feedback sort of an approach. You try a small test for a small area, you learn, and then you grow. So let's say we try for a very small area in downtown Calgary next winter, we will learn from it, be able to add more variables. Maybe traffic was not a big priority. I'm just saying, like, maybe something else was a bigger priority than what we expected. So it's gonna have to be a very agile sort of approach. And the great part is that while we're figuring out, like I think was previously mentioned as well, how we translate this problem into being quantum and quantum relevant, while we're figuring this out, the machines are gonna keep getting better. So because the algorithm can translate to a new machine. So as we keep figuring the problem out more and how we want to solve it, by the time we get to a good solution theoretically, the machines would also sort of get there. And that's the reason we need to start working on these sort of problems like as soon as we can.
So the main point here is right now, like hybrid solution is not something that hinders us to get the best result, because compared to the classical approach, we saw that it is comparable and sometimes much better because of the definition of the Hamiltonian. Not going into the details, but here's the thing. We don't want to fall behind. So if we start right now in city of Calgary, we have better chance to be ahead of other cities or municipalities or other countries. That's the thing.
I think one of the other benefits is you could take this solution. Every city has a snowplow issue. So ultimately, you can take this solution and export it to other cities around the world, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
So as far as we can transfer the problem into Kubo optimization, we can use this approach. Probably Kubo can tell us more about this because they have the name, right?
Yeah, is that what Kubo stands for? I know the answer. That's why I'm asking him. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much. Fantastic.
Thank you.
So thanks for everyone for coming. Thanks for all the speakers and presenters for coming. And I think tomorrow's session is a private session. Is that right, Monique? Yeah, so we'll be shut down. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the Wave, our grand opening, our launch. It's super exciting for us. We learned a lot, and the amount of engagement we had was incredible. So both in person and online. It's been a long 9 days. We had a 10-day launch. We're almost done. We're in our last mile, but it's been fantastic. Super exciting. Thanks to the entire Wave team. They all worked many, many hours to get this together and to get it done. And thanks to our fearless leader, Monique Nesset, for being our leader and getting us through this. And of course, Jason Cameron, but I don't think he's here. I think he went to pick up his daughter, but he's been working constantly. Every weekend he's been here trying to put the furniture together and all that, all the inside. And yeah, it's just been tremendous. So thank you very much, everyone.